Humans had enough of being nice. Their response was war. Part 1. The Breaking Point. The stars had always been kind to humanity. For 300 years, humans had traveled among them, met strange beings, and made friends with creatures they once only dreamed about. Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition in the year 2547, and since that day, humans had worked hard to be good neighbors. They solved problems. They stopped fights. They gave help to those who needed it. The galaxy knew humans as the peacekeepers, the nice ones, the species that always chose words over weapons. Admiral Park Do-yeon had served in Earth's defense fleet for 40 years. He had gray hair now and lines on his face that told stories of difficult decisions. But in all his years, he had never fired a weapon in anger. His job was to protect, to stand ready, to show strength without using it. He was proud of this. Humanity was proud of this. On the morning that changed everything, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Resolve. The ship floated in orbit around a beautiful green planet called Kepler 442b. Humans had lived there for over 100 years. They had built cities and farms. Children played in parks. Families ate dinner together. It was home to 2.3 million people. It had been home. Now the planet below was burning. Great clouds of black smoke rose from where cities once stood. The oceans were dark with ash. Admiral Park watched as rescue ships flew down to the surface, searching for survivors. He knew they would not find many. The Velari had come without warning. Their warships had appeared in the sky 3 days ago, and they had begun firing immediately. They did not send a message. They did not make demands. They simply started killing. By the time Earth's fleet arrived, it was too late. The Velari had already gone, leaving behind nothing but death and destruction. Captain Beek Jisoo stood beside Admiral Park. She was young, only 32 years old, but she was brilliant. Everyone said she would be an admiral herself one day. Right now, her hands were shaking with anger. "Sir," she said, her voice tight, "the final count is coming in. 2.3 million dead. There are less than 10,000 survivors." Admiral Park closed his eyes. He had seen death before. He had attended funerals. But this was different. This was murder on a scale he could not understand. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why did they do this?" Captain Beek pulled up a message on her screen. The Velari government sent a statement to the coalition. They call it a territorial correction. They say this system was always theirs and humans were trespassing. "That's a lie," Admiral Park said. "We have been here for 100 years. The coalition recognized our claim." "Yes, sir, but the Velari don't seem to care." Far away on a space station at the center of the galaxy, Ambassador Yoon Hana stood before the Coalition Council. She had spent her whole life learning how to speak calmly, how to find the right words, how to make peace between enemies. Today, she felt like screaming. The council chamber was huge, filled with representatives from 100 different species. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all, just floating lights that spoke with musical voices. They all watched Ambassador Yoon with expressions that ranged from bored to annoyed. "Honored representatives," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I come before you to demand justice. 3 days ago, the Velari Empire attacked a peaceful human colony without warning or reason. They killed 2.3 million innocent people. Men, women, children. They are all dead." She paused, looking around the room. Some of the representatives whispered to each other. Others looked at their screens, clearly not paying attention. "We ask the coalition to condemn this attack," Ambassador Yoon continued. "We ask for sanctions against the Velari Empire. We ask for justice." The Speaker of the Council, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, raised one hand for silence. "The Council has reviewed the Velari statement. They claim the system in question was disputed territory. This appears to be a minor border dispute." Ambassador Yoon felt her heart stop. A minor border dispute. They killed millions of people. Regrettable, the speaker said, but not unprecedented. The Council sees no reason to intervene in what is essentially a territorial disagreement. We encourage both parties to negotiate peacefully. Negotiate, Ambassador Yoon's voice rose, with murderers. Ambassador, please control yourself. The Velari are a respected member of this coalition. Humans are newer members. Perhaps you do not understand how these things work. Ambassador Yoon stared at the speaker. She had given her life to diplomacy. She had believed in the coalition. She had believed that if humanity was good and kind and helpful, others would treat them the same way. She had been wrong. I understand perfectly, she said quietly. I understand that human lives mean nothing to this council. I understand that we are expected to accept murder and call it politics. I understand everything now. She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the representatives returned to their other business, already forgetting about the millions of dead humans. Back on the UES Resolve, Admiral Park received two messages at the same time. The first was from Ambassador Yoon, telling him what had happened at the Council. The second was from Earth, from the United Parliament. He read the second message 3 times, unable to believe his eyes. Captain Beak noticed his expression. Sir, what does it say? Admiral Park looked up at her. In 40 years of service, he had never seen what he was about to share. The United Parliament, which governed all of humanity, had voted. The vote was unanimous. Every single representative from every single nation on Earth and every human colony had agreed. They have declared war, Admiral Park said. For the first time in 300 years, humanity is going to war. Captain Beak stood straighter. What are your orders, sir? Admiral Park turned to face the burning planet below. He thought about the children who would never grow up, the families who would never eat dinner together again, the dreams that had turned to ash. Send a message to all ships, he said. His voice was calm, but there was something new in it, something hard, something dangerous. Tell them the time for patience is over. Tell them we are done being nice. He looked at his reflection in the window. An old man, tired and sad, but behind the sadness there was fire. They wanted to know what humans do when diplomacy fails, he said. Let's show them. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 ships and 100 colonies, humans heard the news. Some cried. Some cheered. All of them felt the same thing, a feeling that had been sleeping for 300 years, buried under kindness and patience and hope. The feeling was anger. And humanity was about to show the galaxy what human anger looked like. Humans had enough of being nice. Their response was war. Part 2, The Sleeping Giant Wakes. Deep beneath the frozen mountains of Antarctica, something was waking up. For 200 years, this place had been listed in official records as an abandoned research station. Satellites showed nothing but ice and snow. Sensors detected no energy signatures. As far as the galaxy knew, it was just another empty piece of frozen rock. General Quantihi knew better. She walked through tunnels carved into the mountain, her boots clicking on metal floors that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Around her, lights were turning on for the first time in decades. Machines that had been sleeping were beginning to hum with power. Workers ran past her, shouting orders, activating systems that most humans had forgotten existed. Status report, she said into her communicator. A voice answered immediately. Shipyard Alpha is now online, General. Shipyards Beta through Omega will be operational within 6 hours. Production can begin immediately. General Quan allowed herself a small smile. For 300 years, humanity had shown the galaxy a small defense fleet, a few hundred ships, barely enough to protect their borders. The coalition had laughed at it. The Velari had dismissed it as proof that humans were weak. They had no idea. On the other side of the planet, in a laboratory hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Shin Yunji was finally able to share her life's work. She was 63 years old, with wild gray hair and glasses that she was always losing. She looked like someone's grandmother. In truth, she was the most dangerous weapons scientist in human history. "Project Prometheus," she said, standing before a group of military officers. "We started working on this technology 150 years ago, right after we joined the coalition. We hoped we would never need it. Now we do." She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a weapon that looked simple, just a metal cylinder about the size of a person. But the officers in the room knew that appearances meant nothing. "This device," Dr. Shin explained, "can bend spacetime itself. We call it a star hammer. When activated, it creates a gravitational wave so powerful that it can crush a fleet of ships in seconds. Or, if necessary, it can do much worse." One of the officers raised his hand. "How much worse?" Dr. Shin adjusted her glasses. "If we wanted to, and I hope we never do, we could use a star hammer to make a star go supernova. We could destroy an entire solar system in a matter of hours." The room went silent. "We have built 50 of these weapons," Dr. Shin continued. "We have also developed gravity shields that can stop almost any attack faster-than-light engines that are 10 times more efficient than Coalition standard, and personal armor that can survive a direct hit from a plasma cannon." She smiled, but there was no joy in it. "We built all of this because we knew that someday someone would decide that being nice was the same as being weak. We wanted to be ready." Far across the galaxy, the Velari Emperor sat on his throne and laughed. His name was Lord Vraxos, and he had ruled the Velari Empire for 200 years. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and red eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. His people were warriors, and they had conquered 100 worlds. The idea that humans could threaten them was the funniest joke he had heard in years. "Let me understand this correctly," he said to his advisors. "The humans have declared war on us, the peacekeepers, the diplomats." He laughed again. "What are they going to do, talk us to death?" His advisors laughed with him. One of them, a general named Korath, stepped forward. "My lord, our intelligence says the human fleet numbers only 300 ships. We have 10,000. This will not be a war. It will be an execution." Emperor Vraxos nodded, pleased. "Good. Destroy their fleet, burn their worlds, and bring me their leaders in chains. I want to see the look on their faces when they realize how foolish they were to challenge us." What the Velari did not know, what no one in the galaxy knew, was that at that very moment, 50,000 human warships were emerging from hidden locations across a dozen star systems. They had been built in secret, one piece at a time, hidden in asteroid fields and beneath the surfaces of moons. Their crews had trained in simulations, waiting for the day they would be needed. That day had finally come. Commander Oh Seung-woo received his orders while sitting in a small ship that looked like a cargo transport. He was 35 years old, with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. He was the leader of the Nightfall Unit, humanity's most elite special operations team. Officially, they did not exist. "Target confirmed," he said to his team. "The Velari's primary shipyard. If we destroy it, they lose the ability to build new warships for at least a year." One of his team members, a woman named Lieutenant Gomuri, checked her weapons. Security. Heavy, 5,000 guards, automated defense systems, energy shields around the entire facility. Commander O smiled. "Nothing we haven't dealt with before." Their ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and within hours they arrived at the Velari shipyard. It was massive, a metal structure the size of a small moon, floating in space and surrounded by patrol ships. No one saw the Nightfall team arrive. No one detected them as they slipped past the patrol ships using technology that made their vessel invisible to sensors. No one noticed when they cut through the outer hull and entered the station. For the next 3 hours, Commander O and his team moved through the shipyard like ghosts. They planted explosives in critical locations. They disabled security systems. They eliminated guards so quietly that the bodies were not discovered until it was too late. At exactly midnight station time, Commander O pressed a button on his wrist. The Velari shipyard exploded. The blast was visible from 3 star systems away. In a single night, humanity had destroyed the place where half of the Velari fleet was built. There were no survivors. The Nightfall team was already gone, jumping back to human space before anyone could respond. When Emperor Vraxos received the news, he stopped laughing. "Impossible," he said, reading the report for the 5th time. "This is impossible. How did they do this? Who are these humans?" His advisors had no answers. Back on Earth, General Quan addressed her forces. They stood before her in the millions: soldiers, pilots, engineers, medics. Every human colony had sent its best. Every nation had contributed. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity was united not by hope, but by anger. "For 300 years," General Quan said, her voice carrying across the assembly, "we smiled. We compromised. We buried our pride for peace. We believed that if we were kind enough, good enough, patient enough, the galaxy would treat us with respect." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They took that as weakness. They laughed at us. They ignored our pain. They killed our people and called it a minor dispute." Her eyes swept across the crowd. She saw young faces and old ones. She saw fear and anger and determination. She saw her people, ready to fight for the first time in their lives. "They asked what we do when pushed," General Quan continued. "They asked what happens when humanity stops being nice. Now they are going to find out." She raised her fist. "We are the sleeping giant," she shouted, "and we have finally woken up. Let us show the galaxy why humans were feared on their own world for 10,000 years. Let us show them that our kindness was never weakness, it was mercy, and mercy has run out." The crowd erupted in cheers. The sound was so loud it could be heard in orbit. In the Coalition Council chamber, the representatives watched the news reports in stunned silence. The humans they had dismissed, the peacekeepers they had ignored, were suddenly the most powerful force in the galaxy. And they were very, very angry. Humans had enough of being nice. Their response was war. Part 3: The Art of Human Warfare. Lieutenant No Minyi had dreamed of flying since he was 5 years old. Growing up on a small colony world, he would lie in the grass at night and watch the stars, imagining himself soaring among them. Now, at 28, he was exactly where he had always wanted to be, in the cockpit of a fighter craft, leading his squadron into battle. The only thing he had not imagined was the fear. "All units check in," he said through his communicator, trying to keep his voice steady. One by one, his squadron reported. 12 pilots, 12 small ships, facing a Velari battle group of over 200 vessels. On paper, it was suicide. But Lieutenant No had been taught something that the Velari did not understand. Humans did not fight fair. "Remember your training," he said. "We are not trying to destroy them ship by ship. We are trying to confuse them, break their formation, make them fight themselves." His squadron broke apart, each ship flying in a different direction. To the Velari sensors, it looked like chaos, 12 tiny ships scattering like frightened birds. The Velari commander laughed and ordered his fleet to pursue. That was his first mistake. The human ships were small, but they were fast, much faster than the Velari had expected. They dodged between the larger warships, forcing them to turn and twist to keep up. Within minutes, the Velari formation had fallen apart. Ships that were supposed to support each other were now separated by kilometers of empty space. "Now," Lieutenant No said calmly. The human fleet arrived. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the exact moment when the Velari fleet was at its most confused. They fired immediately, their weapons cutting through ships that had no allies nearby to help them. In 15 minutes, the the battle was over. The Velari had lost 150 ships. The humans had lost none. This was what humans called swarm tactics. It was something they had learned thousands of years ago, fighting wars on their own planet. Confuse the enemy, make them make mistakes, then strike when they are weak. The Velari had never seen anything like it. Far away, at a place called Nexus Prime, Commodore HFY Jiwin was facing a bigger problem. The Velari had gathered their largest fleet at this system, over 2,000 warships, protected by orbital defense platforms and minefields. They thought this would be enough to stop any attack. Commodore HFY looked at the enemy fleet on his screen and smiled. He was 45 years old, with graying hair and the kind of calm expression that made people nervous. He had spent 30 years studying military history from every human culture. He had learned from generals and admirals who lived thousands of years ago. He had taken their lessons and adapted them for space combat. Now he was going to use everything he had learned. "There is an asteroid field at the edge of this system," he said to his officers. "How large are the asteroids?" One of his officers checked the data. "Some of them are several kilometers across, sir. Why do you ask?" "Because we are going to use them as weapons." The plan was simple but required perfect timing. Human ships pushed the largest asteroids out of their normal orbits, aiming them at the Velari fleet. At the same time, other ships kept the Velari busy with small attacks, forcing them to focus on the wrong direction. By the time the Velari noticed the asteroids, it was too late. Giant rocks, each one the size of a city, crashed into the Velari formation at incredible speed. Ships were crushed. Others tried to escape and ran into each other. The orbital defense platforms, designed to shoot at ships, could not target something as large and fast as an asteroid. Commodore HFY watched as the Velari fleet was destroyed without him losing a single ship. He felt no joy, only the grim satisfaction of a job well done. "Send a message to Earth," he said. "Nexus Prime is ours." On the surface of a Velari-occupied planet, Sergeant First Class Yuri was fighting a different kind of battle. She was a combat medic, trained to save lives even in the middle of war. But today, she was leading a rescue mission. Intelligence had located a prison camp where the Velari were holding over 400 human prisoners of war. The prisoners were being tortured for information. Some had already died. If Yuri's team did not reach them soon, more would follow. "Stay low and stay quiet," she whispered to her team. They moved through the forest surrounding the camp, their advanced armor making them nearly invisible. The Velari guards did not see them coming. Yuri was not a killer by nature. She had become a medic because she wanted to heal people, not hurt them. But when she saw the conditions inside the prison camp, the starving prisoners, the torture equipment, the bodies of those who had not survived, something inside her went cold. "Free the prisoners," she ordered. "I will deal with the guards." What happened next was quick and brutal. The Velari guards had been told that humans were soft, that they avoided violence whenever possible. They were not prepared for a human who had seen what they had done to her people. By the time reinforcements arrived, the camp was empty. All 400 prisoners had been evacuated. Every guard was dead. Yuri sat in the evacuation ship, her hands still shaking, blood on her armor that was not her own. One of the rescued prisoners, an old man with scars on his face, reached out and touched her shoulder. "Thank you," he said. "We thought no one was coming. We thought we were forgotten." Yuri closed her eyes. "We never forget our own, never." As the weeks passed, the tide of war turned more and more against the Velari. They had expected an easy victory against what they thought was a weak species. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to learn from every battle. When the Velari used a new weapon, humans analyzed it and found a counter within days. When the Velari changed their tactics, humans adapted faster. When the Velari set traps, humans turned those traps against them. Velari commanders began to call humans the demons. Stories spread through their fleet of human soldiers who could not be stopped, human ships that appeared from nowhere, human generals who seemed to know what the Velari would do before they did it. In one famous incident, a Velari general was captured after his flagship was destroyed. His human interrogator, a calm woman named Captain Yoon Bitna, asked him a simple question. "What surprised you most about fighting us?" The Velari general stared at her for a long time. He was missing an arm, lost in the battle. His red eyes were dull with exhaustion and defeat. "We thought your kindness was your nature," he finally said. "We thought you were gentle because you could not be anything else. We were wrong. You can be monsters when you choose to be. You just chose not to be until we forced you." Captain Yoon nodded slowly. "That is the thing about humans. We know how to be cruel. We know how to destroy. Our history is full of wars and violence. But we chose to be better. We chose kindness because we understood the cost of cruelty." She stood up, looking down at the broken general. "You made us remember that cost. You reminded us of what we can be when pushed too far. Now you will live with the consequences." Across the galaxy, the war continued. Human fleets pushed deeper into Velari territory, liberating occupied worlds and destroying military targets. They did not kill civilians. They did not torture prisoners. They fought with terrible efficiency, but they held onto their principles. This confused the Velari more than anything else. They could understand an enemy that was cruel. They could not understand an enemy that was both merciful and unstoppable. Lieutenant No Minyi, now promoted to commander, flew mission after mission. He lost friends. He saw terrible things. But he never forgot why he was fighting, not for conquest but for justice. For the 2.3 million people who had died on Kepler 442b. For all the humans who had suffered because the galaxy thought kindness meant weakness. They would learn the truth now. They would learn what humanity really was. And they would never forget. Humans had enough of being nice. Their response was war. Part 4. The galaxy takes notice. The Coalition Council chamber, which had once been filled with the sounds of bored conversation and political games, was now completely silent. On the massive screen at the front of the room, maps showed the progress of the human Velari war. Red areas marked Velari territory. Blue areas marked human advances. Every day there was more blue. The Speaker of the Council, the same silver-skinned creature who had called the massacre a minor border dispute, stood at the center of the room. His 4 hands were trembling. "This is a crisis," he said. "The humans have advanced faster than anyone predicted. They have taken 17 Velari systems in 2 months. Their fleet is now approaching the Velari homeworld." One of the representatives, a small insect-like creature from a species called the Mercathi, raised a claw. "What do you expect us to do? We told the humans their problems did not matter. We laughed at their pain. Why would they listen to us now?" Another representative, a massive rock-like being from a heavy-gravity world, rumbled in agreement. "We created this situation. We treated the humans like servants. We took their help and gave them nothing in return. Now we are seeing the result." The speaker looked desperate. "But we cannot allow the Velari Empire to fall. They are a founding member of this coalition. They have been our allies for 1,000 years." "They are murderers," the Mercathi replied. "They killed millions of innocent humans and called it politics. Perhaps they deserve what is coming to them." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some wanted to help the Velari. Some wanted to help the humans. Most just wanted to stay out of the conflict entirely, afraid of what humanity might do to anyone who stood in their way. While the council argued, Chancellor Bong Sungho was receiving a visitor on Earth. His name was Elder Korvath, and he was the leader of the Sylvani, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. The Sylvani were known for their wisdom and their commitment to peace. They had lived for millions of years by avoiding conflict whenever possible. Elder Corvath looked like a tall, thin tree that had learned to walk. His bark-like skin was gray with age, and his eyes were deep pools of green light. He moved slowly, carefully, as if every step required great thought. "Chancellor," he said, his voice like wind through leaves, "I have come to understand." Chancellor Bong was a large man with kind eyes and a gentle smile that hid a sharp mind. He had led humanity through the darkest days after the massacre, holding his people together when grief threatened to tear them apart. Now he sat across from one of the most ancient beings in the universe. "Understand what?" he asked. Elder Corvath was silent for a long moment. "For 300 years, I watched humanity join the coalition. I saw you solve problems that others could not solve. I saw you make peace between enemies. I saw you sacrifice your own interests for the greater good." He paused, his green eyes distant. "I thought I understood you. I thought you were gentle because you did not know how to be anything else. I thought your kindness was a lack of strength. I was wrong." Chancellor Bong nodded slowly. "Many people made that mistake." "Yes." Elder Corvath's voice was heavy with regret. "The truth is that you are not kind because you are weak. You are kind because you are strong. You know what you could do, what you could become, and you choose not to. Every day, every moment, you make that choice." He reached out and touched the Chancellor's hand with a branch-like finger. "That is harder than anything I have ever done. My people avoid conflict because we fear it. Your people avoid conflict because you have mastered it. There is a great difference." Chancellor Bong was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. "We tried, Elder. We tried so hard to be good, to show the galaxy that strength and kindness could exist together. We gave and gave and gave, asking for nothing in return. And when we finally needed help, when our people were murdered and we begged for justice." He stopped, and for a moment, the Chancellor who had held humanity together looked like a tired old man. "They laughed at us. They called it a minor dispute. They told us to be patient, to negotiate, to be peaceful." Elder Corvath bowed his ancient head. "I know, I was there. I voted with the majority. I did not speak up for you." "Why not?" "Because I thought it did not matter. I thought humans would do what they always did, accept the injustice and move on." Elder Corvath's voice cracked like breaking wood. "I did not understand that your patience was not infinite. I did not understand that you were giving us chances to do the right thing and we kept failing." Chancellor Bong stood and walked to the window. Outside, ships were launching from the surface, joining the fleet that was heading toward the Velari homeworld. The sky was full of fire and steel. "We do not want to destroy the Velari," he said. "We do not want to conquer anyone. We want what we have always wanted, to live in peace, to be treated with respect, to know that our people are safe." He turned back to face Elder Corvath. "But we have learned something. Peace is not given. It must be earned. And sometimes the only way to earn peace is to show that you are willing to fight for it." In another part of the galaxy, Intelligence Director Ki Sujin was having a very different conversation. She was meeting with representatives from 12 smaller species, races that had been bullied by the Velari for centuries. The Mercathi were there, along with the Torth, the Vendari, and others. All of them had suffered under Velari aggression. All of them had watched in silence, afraid to speak up. Now they wanted to talk. "We want to help," the Mercathi representative said. "The Velari have oppressed us for too long. We want to support humanity." Director Ki was a small woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had spent 40 years keeping humanity's secrets. She knew things about every species in the coalition, their weaknesses, their fears, their secrets. She had prepared for this moment. "Why now?" she asked. "Where were you when our people were dying?" The Mercathi shifted uncomfortably. "We were afraid. The Velari are powerful. We're powerful. If we had spoken up, they would have destroyed us." So you waited until someone else was willing to bleed for you, until humans died by the millions. Then you decided to offer help. The room was silent. No one could meet Director Key's eyes. Finally, she smiled, a thin, cold expression that did not reach her eyes. We will accept your help, not because you deserve our trust, but because it will end this war faster, less death, less suffering. That is what humans want even now. She stood up, and suddenly she seemed much larger than her small frame. But remember this. We have files on every species in the coalition. We know your secrets, your weaknesses, your lies. We built those files because we knew this day might come, a day when we needed to know who our friends really were. She looked around the room, making sure everyone understood. You failed the test, all of you. You stood by while innocent people died because you were afraid. We will forgive because that is who we are, but we will never forget. The representatives left the meeting pale and shaking. Above the Velari homeworld, Admiral Park Do-yeon watched the planet through his flagship's windows. It was beautiful, a world of red deserts and silver cities, home to billions of beings. Beings who had cheered when their emperor ordered the massacre of humans. Beings who had celebrated while children died. He could destroy this world. He had the weapons. One command and the Velari species would be wiped from existence. He did not give that command. Open a channel to the surface, he said instead. Tell Emperor Vraxos that his fleet is destroyed, his defenses have fallen, and his people are at our mercy. Tell him he has 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Captain Beak Jisoo looked at him with surprise. Sir, after everything they did. I know what they did. Admiral Park's voice was heavy with grief and anger. I remember every name, every face, every child who died on Kepler 442b. I will remember them for the rest of my life. He turned away from the window. But if we become like them, if we destroy and kill and call it justice, then they win. Everything we fought for, everything we believe in becomes a lie. He closed his eyes. We are better than this, we have to be. Humans had enough of being nice. Their response was war. Part 5, The New Order. Emperor Vraxos of the Velari Empire stood in chains before the human fleet. His gray skin had turned pale. His red eyes, once glowing with arrogance and cruelty, were now dull with defeat. Around him, his advisors and generals knelt on the floor of his own throne room, surrounded by human soldiers. Admiral Park Do-yeon walked slowly toward the emperor. His boots echoed on the marble floor, the same floor where Vraxos had laughed about human weakness, where he had ordered the destruction of Kepler 442b. Emperor Vraxos, Admiral Park said, his voice calm and cold, by order of the United Human Parliament, the Velari Empire is dissolved. Your territories will be placed under humanitarian administration. Your military will be dismantled. Your weapons will be destroyed. Vraxos looked up at the human with hatred in his eyes. You think you have won. You think this is over. My people will never accept your rule. We will fight you for 1,000 years. Admiral Park shook his head slowly. We are not here to rule you. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to make sure you never hurt anyone again. He turned to his soldiers. Take him to the transport. He will face trial for his crimes, along with everyone who participated in the massacre. General Korath, the one who had promised to bring human leaders to Vraxos in chains, was dragged past the admiral. He looked at Park with something new in his eyes, not hatred but fear. Why, Korath asked, why do you not kill us after everything we did? Admiral Park stopped and looked at the Velari general for a long moment. He thought about the burning planet, the dead children, the grief that still woke him up at night. Because we are not you, he said simply, we never were. The days after the surrender were strange and difficult. Human forces spread across former Velari territory, but not as conquerors. They brought food to hungry civilians. They rebuilt hospitals and schools. They freed prisoners who had been locked away for speaking against the Empire. Many Velari could not understand this. They had expected revenge, cruelty, punishment. Instead, they found humans who helped them even though they were enemies. It confused them more than any weapon ever could. Ambassador Yoon Hana returned to diplomacy. She had watched the war from Earth, unable to stop the killing, haunted by her failure at the Coalition Council. Now she was part of building something new. The old coalition was dead. No one trusted it anymore. In its place, humans proposed a new organization, the Galactic Assembly. It would have real rules, real consequences. No more ignoring atrocities. No more calling mass murder a minor dispute. At the first meeting of the new assembly, Ambassador Yoon stood before representatives from across the galaxy. Many of them had looked down on humans for centuries. Now they listened with careful attention. "We do not want to dominate the galaxy," she said. "We never did. We only wanted to live in peace, to be treated with respect, to build a future where all species could grow together." She paused, looking around the room. "But we learned something during this war. Peace is not just about being nice. It is about being fair. It is about protecting the weak and punishing the cruel. It is about standing up for what is right, even when it is hard." She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared showing the ruins of Kepler 442b. 2.3 million people. That is the cost of silence. That is what happens when good beings say nothing while evil spreads. We will never let this happen again. The assembly voted. The new charter was approved. For the first time in galactic history, there were real rules about how species could treat each other, and everyone knew that humanity would enforce those rules if necessary. Back on Earth, General Kwon Teehee oversaw the return of the soldiers. Many of them were changed, harder, older, scarred by what they had seen and done. She made sure they received help, support, a chance to heal. Dr. Shin Yoonji locked away her weapons again. The star hammers went back into storage, hopefully never to be used, but they would be ready just in case. Commander Oh Seung-woo and his Nightfall unit returned to the shadows. They would continue to protect humanity, to gather information, to stand ready for threats that might come. But for now, they could rest. A young cadet named Moon Hae-young visited Admiral Park at his home after the war. She was 19 years old, just beginning her training, part of the generation that would carry humanity's legacy forward. "Sir," she asked, sitting across from the old admiral, "do you think we will be peaceful again? Will humans go back to the way we were?" Admiral Park looked at the young woman. He saw hope in her eyes, hope that the war was just a moment, not a new beginning, hope that kindness would return. "We were always peaceful," he said slowly. "The universe just forgot that peace is not the same as weakness. Being kind requires more strength than being cruel. It is easy to hurt others. It is hard to help them." He stood and walked to his window. Outside, children were playing in a park. Ships flew overhead, carrying goods and passengers to distant stars. Life was returning to normal. "We stopped being patient," he continued. "We stopped accepting cruelty with silence. That was the only change. We showed the galaxy what we could do if pushed too far." He turned back to face the young cadet. "But our nature has not changed. We still want to help. We still want to build. We still want to believe that the universe can be good. We just learned that sometimes, to protect goodness, you must be willing to fight for it." Cadet Moon nodded slowly, trying to understand. "So what happens now?" Admiral Park smiled, a real smile, the first one in months. "Now we do what we have always done. We help, we build, we make friends. We try to make the galaxy a little bit better than we found it." He put his hand on her shoulder. "But we never forget. We never lower our guard completely. We never assume that kindness will be returned. We hope for the best but prepare for the worst." Years passed. The war became history. New generations grew up hearing stories about the time humanity showed its teeth to the galaxy. Some of those stories became legends, exaggerated and transformed by time, but the core truth remained. In a school on a distant colony, a teacher told her students about Earth and its people. They were from many different species: Mercathi, Torth, Silvani, even some young Velari whose parents had chosen peace over hatred. "The humans are strange," the teacher said. "They are capable of great cruelty. Their history is full of wars and violence. And yet they chose to be kind. They chose to help instead of conquer. They chose to build instead of destroy." A young Velari student raised her hand. "My grandfather says humans are dangerous. He says we should fear them." The teacher nodded. "Your grandfather is not entirely wrong. Humans are dangerous. They are perhaps the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But that is exactly why their choice matters. They know what they could do. They know the destruction they could cause. And every day they choose not to." She looked out the window at the stars. That is the lesson of humanity. Kindness is not weakness. Patience is not cowardice. The strongest beings are not those who destroy without thinking, but those who have the power to destroy and choose mercy instead. On the anniversary of the war's end, people across the galaxy held a moment of silence. They remembered the dead, both human and Velari. They remembered the cost of cruelty and the price of silence. And they remembered the lesson that humanity had taught them, a lesson written in fire and blood, but ending with hope. On Earth, Admiral Park stood alone at a memorial for the victims of Kepler 442b. He was very old now, his hair white, his body frail. But his eyes were still sharp, still full of the fire that had carried him through the war. He looked at the names carved into the stone. 2.3 million names, representing 2.3 million lives cut short. Mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, people who had dreamed of futures they would never see. "We won," he whispered. "We showed them who we really are, but I wish—" His voice broke. "I wish you could have seen it. I wish you could know that your deaths meant something, that we remembered, that we changed the galaxy so this could never happen again." A hand touched his shoulder. He looked up to see Ambassador Yoon, also old now, her hair gray but her smile still warm. "They know," she said. "Somewhere, somehow they know." They stood together in silence. Two old warriors who had hoped for peace and found war, who had wanted kindness and delivered justice, who had shown the galaxy that humanity was both the gentlest and the most terrible force among the stars. And in the sky above them, the sun continued to shine as it always had, on a species that had finally found its place in the universe. Not as servants or rulers, but as guardians of a peace they had earned through blood and tears and the unwavering belief that kindness, in the end, was always worth fighting for.